After a decade, 2 trials and 1 appeal, Hartford settles a dog shooting for $885,000. The city has agreed to pay $885,000 to a family whose 115-pound pet dog was shot after chasing police officers who entered the family yard without a warrant to search for guns during a frantic day of anti-gang operations. Approval of the settlement by the City Council Monday night closes a bitterly contested, 11-year-old, federal civil rights suit that was tried once in Hartford, appealed and returned to Hartford for a second trial. 3/4 of the settlement is likely to be applied to legal fees and costs associated with the litigation, according to court filings. The case continues to generate strong feelings, and it provides a look back to a time when the city was convulsed by drug-related violence in its northeast corner. The city's response, at the time, was to send an expanded team of officers to the area with orders to make illegal guns their priority. The gun crackdown ended up at Glenn Harris' home at 297 Enfield Street on December 20, 2006. Harris claimed in the lawsuit he brought with his daughter that the police, pursuing what proved to be a bad tip from an informant, conducted an illegal, warrantless and ultimately fruitless search for guns in his partially fenced-in yard. Harris lawyer John Schoenhern said Harris' daughter, identified in court as Kay, was emotionally traumatized and became suicidal after seeing one of her 2 pet St. Bernard shot. The suit named the city of Hartford and the 2 highly regarded officers who ended up at the Harris home, John Michael O'Hare and Anthony Pia. They testified and their lawyer, Thomas Gerard, argued to 2 juries that they were carrying out their duties and should not be liable for shooting the dog, which was the tragic conclusion to a hectic day of department anti-gang operations. Earlier in the day, both officers were involved in a harrowing, multi-car pursuit of suspected carjackers, who led police across the North End before veering off a side street and fleeing on foot. Pia helped catch one suspect. O'Hare caught another, but was injured after a chase across backyards, through hedges and over fences. O'Hare was ordered to get medical treatment, but he and Pia were diverted before he reached the emergency room. A gang leader, just out of prison, had been caught with a half-dozen bags of heroin and was willing to trade guns for leniency. The 2 officers were told that guns belonging to drug dealers were hidden in an abandoned car at 297 Enfield Street, the Harris address. The cops raced to Enfield Street in an effort to get to the guns before the drug dealers. Gerard said that O'Hare and Pia walked onto the property with their guns unholstered. They saw, in less than a minute, that there was no abandoned car. So the 2 officers turned and began walking away. On the other side of the house, Harris' daughter had just returned home from school and let one of the family's 2 St. Bernards out the back door. Kay testified in court that the dog, named Seven and her favorite, tore away toward O'Hare and Pia at the front of the house. Gerard said in court that the officers broke into a full sprint. He said O'Hare heard the dog growling and snapping at his heels and commanded it to stop. The dog didn't and O'Hare shot twice. The daughter, who had run around the other side of the house, watched. At the first trial, in 2012, U.S. District Judge Robert N. Chattaney ruled that the officers did not need a warrant to enter the Harris property. He said the officers were acting in the public interest and under emergency circumstances. They were on duty, acting on instructions, had reason to believe there were guns on the property and were rushing to get to them before the drug dealers. The first jury returned a verdict absolving Pia and O'Hare and the city of any liability. Schoenhern appealed and, 2 years later, the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals said Chattaney was wrong. The appellate judges said the 2 officers acted in good faith because it was reasonable to believe from the informant tip that there were guns on the Harris property. But the appeals court said the officers should have first obtained a search warrant. It ordered another trial to determine what, if anything, the Harris family deserved in damages. The second jury awarded Harris and his daughter $202,000 in damages. Notably, the jury imposed $32,000 of the total as punitive damages against O'Hare and Pia, meaning the two officers would have to each pay $16,000 out of personal funds. The award of punitive damages means that the second jury believed the officers had acted maliciously. Under state indemnification law, the award meant the city could compel the two officers to pay the entire damage award plus costs. For a time, the city said it would do just that, but it now appears that position was a negotiating tactic. Punitive damages were at odds with both Chattanooga and the appellate court. The appeals court said the two officers entered the Harris property as part of their official police duties and were justified in their suspicion that guns had been hidden there. Shohern placed a $750,000 attachment on O'Hare's property and $650,000 on that of Pia and made arrangements to garnish their police salaries. The lawsuit seemed headed for another appeal when Chattanooga earlier this year told the parties that the second jury made a mistake on punitive damages and that he was contemplating striking that portion of the verdict. "Let's be plain," Chattanooga said. "Should these officers lose their homes because of what they did that day? That's what we are talking about. I say, no. Not on this record. These officers should be indemnified." Chattanooga asked U.S. Magistrate Judge Donna F. Martinez to preside over a settlement, and she embarked on a sort of shuttle diplomacy. She closeted openly hostile parties in different areas of the federal building on Main Street and shuttled among them with proposals. Corporation Counsel Howard Rifkin negotiated for the city and the city's insurer participated. The agreed-upon $885,000 includes both damages and legal costs and indemnifies the officers.